Thanks for live.
Thank you. You want to do the call to order, please?
Yes, please advise. Tonight's meeting is going to open up for September the 3rd, 2024 for Shamong Township. And please be advised, proper notice of this meeting has been given in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shamong Township September 3rd Township meeting. I see some new faces out here. Welcome, and some old faces as well. You want to do the roll call, Sue?
Sure. Mr. DeCresci?
Here.
Ms. Mazitis?
Here.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Zender?
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, just a couple quick comments before we get started, both to our audience here and to those watching on Zoom. I'll just give you a brief explanation of how it works. We're going to open the meeting up to a public comment. So anybody that has anything they want to say, come on up, just state your name and your address and make your point. In Shamong, we don't have any time limits, so you can take the time that you need to explain your position, except for Mrs. King, very long-winded. And we just make your point and be respectful of your neighbors and of each other, and you will be heard. And before we get started, just a couple points that I wanted to make. I know everybody's gotten their tax bills. It's something that we talk about here every month. I find the latest increase absolutely outrageous. The average house has gone up $700 per year, and my taxes went up about $1,400 or $1,500, and I'm not happy. Sue, how much of the increase of people's taxes were directly result of what we charge at Shamong Township?
Shamong Township was 3.72%. It was a $13 increase on an annual basis for the average assessed house, which equates to on an annual basis of $307.54.
Okay, so people's taxes went up $1 a month, basically, for Shamong?
For Shamong Township, that's correct.
Okay. The rest is going to our schools, both to the regional school and to our local school. I'm calling tonight for a review of the audit or a new audit from our local school. When our children went to school, there were about 1,000 kids in class. Now there's 700 kids in class. Now let's start at the top. The state of New Jersey is mandating that all of our fees that go to towns like ours be cut. I was in Perth Amboy a couple weeks ago for a zoning hearing. You should see the services that those people get. They're making 20 or 25 grand or 30 grand. You want to go swim in the Olympic pool, or you want to go lift weights. They have services like you wouldn't believe. And each one of those kids there is getting a couple grand more than our children. So my point is, you have to vote. If you continue to vote for the people that are in there that are doing this, we're going to continue to have the boot of the government on our necks. So if you're not registered, please do so. I think the last day to register is coming up like October 7th, if I'm not mistaken. Also, we have, I see Lieutenant Salvato here. Thank you for coming. We're going to ask you to come up first so we can cut you loose. And anybody else that, has something to say and then they want to leave, they do not need to stay. We won't be offended if you just make your point. And of course, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, which hopefully we're going to wrap up by 9:30 or so. I know we have on our list the Wingate matter, and I'm going to ask the lieutenant to fill us in on what's been going on there. We have a Murphy's Pit issue, also lieutenant's involved in that. And we have the blinking lights, which have been installed. And I'm formally asking the county commissioners to review their decision to put in the circle. I'm asking for a study that lasts for at least 6 months to find out whether or not the blinking lights that they've installed have reduced or eliminated the accidents at this intersection. We've also invited somebody from the commissioners to come, Sue, I imagine.
They said that they're going to come and meet us separate of the public meeting, and they have not given me a date yet for that. They
Okay.
said it would be between September and
October. Okay, so as soon as we get them here, we will either advise you as to what they've told us, and I would prefer that they come and actually speak to you directly as to why they think a $2 to $20 million circle, depending upon who you believe, is necessary at this intersection. When, for example, at Indian Mills and Oakshade, which has 10 times more traffic, can get by without a circle. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for coming. And I'll start by inviting up the lieutenant to come on up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome to Shamong.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? I had a meeting with the mayor a few weeks ago to discuss some of these issues that you've been having with Woodgate and over at the pit. Little bit of a rock and a hard place that we're in between from a law enforcement perspective, especially with Woodgate. There's really nothing going on over there. I drove by there tonight. There is that truck that's parked on the road. It's legally, it's registered. So it's an eyesore. I get it. Yes. I wouldn't want to live next to it in that condition myself, but there's really nothing we can do about that. The stuff that's on the property itself, I think is going to be a code issue. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There are violations written for that.
You know, whether or not they comply, you know, with those citations. Again, not really an issue for the police department, unfortunately. We spoke, you know, just briefly before the meeting about the pit. We had access to a side-by-side. We no longer have access to that. We were able to get in there. And when we were using that, it was effective for the moment at that time being. It kept people out of there. But for now, it's pretty much we're just responsive to it. And by the time we get there, they're in the wind. You know, we can't chase them into the woods with Ford Explorers. We're not going to get them on foot. Certainly open to suggestions from, we spoke before, your input on what we could do better, or maybe things differently. There's something that I don't know, or I haven't thought of, or you suggest, please let me hear it, or let the council, the mayor hear it, and they'll pass it along to me. And we'll do, you know, whatever we can. You know, it is important to us. It's a constant issue. We constantly talk about it. We're not, you know, ignoring it. We constantly talk about it, believe me, because it's every day. But I'm open to suggestions on that. I wish I had better answers for you or more solutions. I really don't at this exact moment.
Did it help having the letter from the property owner verifying that nobody has permission to be there for you?
Well, it does. I mean, we kind of knew that already, but you know, that it's formally on paper, yes. You know, we would enforce trespassing if we were to actually catch somebody there. I've instructed, you know, the troopers to just basically have, you know, zero discretion over there. You catch somebody, you know, write them for it. And then if that deters them from coming back, great, but we have to catch them first. And that's proven difficult. You know, I haven't had any communication with the property owner personally. I know some of you have. Fencing, I think, would be a help. Would it be a be an all and end all to it? Probably not. Would it help? Yeah. But I don't know. You might know better than I do what the chances of that are. You know, I probably wouldn't want to invest any money personally, but if it's a liability issue,
It's been brought to its attention.
some pressure can be put.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate you coming out this evening and for meeting me a couple of weeks ago. Anybody on the council have any questions or comments for the lieutenant?
I'm not going anywhere if anyone wants to grab me afterwards.
Okay. Does anybody from the public have any questions of Lieutenant? Come on up.
Yeah.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Yeah. Good evening again.
Good evening.
Anastasia Zaccaro. We're at 1 Stony Creek Court. Thank you very much, and to the entire force. And I know that your hands are tied, and I think the entire council knows that as well. When you do respond, it's rapid, or as rapid as you could get there, because, you know, you're pretty, you know, yeah, it's a huge area that you patrol. But I think what's most important to recognize is my husband and myself live at 1 Stony Creek Court for 10 years. And we actually chose to come back to New Jersey. I'm from Hoboken. My husband's from Bucks, had a family property in Princeton. pretty much this is my state. When we were looking in Pennsylvania, the realtor made the comment because we couldn't find exactly what we wanted. And he said, how do you feel about going back to New Jersey? And I was like, oh boy, okay, fine. So we did come back. We bought a pocket listing. One Stony Creek was not on the MLS at the time. The previous owners, Sherry and Steve Brescia, lived there for 5 years. They wanted to move out the very first night that they moved in. On her request, she was going to come tonight. I said, let me just get up here and speak first, but then you could come on the record after that. Literally, the first night they lived there, big party, bonfire going on, continued for 5 years. She suffered from cluster headaches, if anyone knows what that is. It's migraines on steroids. So she would go down like a dog for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and the noise was very, very problematic for her. When we looked at the house, it was in May of 2014. Our realtor knew her. We were actually looking at Stowe, a home on Stowe that was available. Didn't work out for us. On the porch, the realtor said, how about we go give my friend a call? She's thinking of selling. We then came. We've been dealing with this not for 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years. It's not an issue. Let's make that very clear. It's a problem. And now the problem has become what's going to be a liability, not only for the owner of the property, but for the town. So I'm going to paraphrase. I don't want to take up a lot of time. And I don't speak normally, but this has gotten me so upset because it's now escalating to confrontations. So on Thursday, 8/22 of this year, our large group parked. My neighbors are here also tonight to Stony Creek. I think you know them, Mayor DeCroce. Apparently around 11:30, I heard pop. And I don't know, a gunshot from a firecracker. So I looked at my husband. We were already upstairs. I said, is that somebody shooting in the pit? Pop again. He gets up, no shirt on, pajamas. He goes outside in the pitch dark. He couldn't see the cars that were parked in front of both of our homes. They were in the pit and at the tree line shooting off Macy's fireworks. Now, we all know what happened in the woods, that they're constantly catching on fire. They're always having to deal with these forest fires. It was a major problem. When my neighbors put on the light, she was able to get a partial plate. They ran out of the woods. They left. 4 troopers came. By around 12:15 that night, PM, the troopers wrapped up. This was on a Thursday. Sunday, 3 days later, I'm coming out of Stony Creek. I'm making a left to make an appointment in Hamilton on Atzian. Kid on a motocross bike comes popping up, does one of those little things, nearly clips the front of my SUV. I pull over on Murphy's pit side. I call the troopers. They come out. Fast forward. Now it's Thursday of the same week. My husband and I are coming back from Harrisburg. As we're coming down Atzian, Stony Creek's on your left. 2 ATVs blinding LED lights are blinding us. My window's down. As we're approaching, I see them. The one gentleman starts yelling, what the F are you looking at, you bitch? And I start yelling now. They chased us home. I said, do not pull in our driveway. My husband goes, don't worry, we're not. We went around the block, called for the troopers, 4 of them dispatched at around 9:30 p.m. So I'm going on record to say it's now becoming a liability. It's no longer just kids out there. Somebody put the minutes up last month and somebody said to me, oh, well, you know, you moved to Shamong and this is what you're going to get. No, that's not what I signed up for. That's not a motocross track over there. They're there every day. As a matter of fact, a resident from our neighborhood, a father and a young daughter in front of her yesterday while I was gardening, he decided to protect her ears in front of him, but didn't even bother to put a helmet on. My husband was at Stony Creek and Murphy's Pit talking to Mr. Casper across the street. The guy comes rolling down, looks at me, rolls up on the stop sign, and he's looking like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on there? Nope, made a right, and then apparently I heard him go back around into the neighborhood. So it's become a liability, and I'm going on record to say that. I can't even pull in my own driveway because I have these imbeciles who are trespassing. They're not allowed to be there because there was a letter that was written. I'm glad the letter was written, but we lived there for 10 years. Signs and letters aren't going to do anything. I called Dawn from Waterford, the town clerk, after the incident on the Thursday that I was talking about. And I wanted to know, how are they doing such a great job at Acco Raceway? Because there's never any incidents there, hardly ever. She was on the phone with me for 45 minutes. And she said, because in this town, when a problem arises again and again and again, we address it correctly. We'll work with you if you're sick. We'll work with you if you have a problem. But if it's ongoing, we're going to lien you. We're going to fine you. That's what has to happen here. A fence needs to be put up. It's called a deterrent. It's another line of defense so that when they do roll up, multiples at a time, there's going to be something there to stop them. And these fine gentlemen and women at our state troopers, they're doing what they could do. They're responding when they can, but their hands are tied. Meanwhile, we live in that beautiful neighborhood that we chose to live in. We came to Shamong for a reason. And yes, we're part of like that great. We're paying probably $2 grand more on our taxes, but that's not what I signed up for. And the owner is not maintaining the property safely and securely for decades now, decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any other want to comments or issues regarding the pit or Wingate? Yes, ma'am. Hi, Diane, state your name for the record and your address.
Diana, Antonucci, 2 Stony Creek Court. I got a full plate, not a partial. I got the full plate.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought, thank you.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if anybody went over and talked to the person, but I ran out there. There were 3 or 4 cars full of teenagers. I went out there,
Is this
I
a
was-
fireworks incident?
the fireworks incident.
Okay.
I was only able to get 1 plate because by the time I ran across the yard, the other cars had pulled away. This one stopped and sat there for some reason. I don't know if they're playing with the radio or whatever. But I got the whole plate.
So if you would get that to Red Lion, I think that would be helpful.
Oh, no, they know.
Okay,
When they
good.
came that night, I gave them the plate number.
All right. The only thing I will say that's positive about that, because I represent the several of the kids who are allegedly charged with charged for allegedly starting the fire on July 4th in the forest fire, which was substantial, that at least these boys or girls, children had the sense to go out where there was no forest. So it's, I've never heard of it before that anybody's gone out there and lit off fireworks.
They do that a lot.
They didn't go on our fields. They didn't ruin our fields, and they didn't go to fireworks. They didn't go out to the forest.
Goes in the wrong direction.
I understand. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying at least they were smart enough to do that.
They're not smart enough to not go past the no trespassing sign.
Well, that's true. Okay.
You can't stop kids from being kids.
Thanks, Diana. All right. Anybody, if you keep your comments, if you come up to the front. Yes, sir.
Hello, council. My name is Rich Tyrell. I live at 9 Stowe Drive in Shamong.
Hi,
At
Rich.
Stony Creek. I've been there since 95, so nearly 30 years. And I will say that I'm surprised that it seems to be such a big deal. I don't hear them very often. They were here this on the weekends occasionally. I find no offense, or I don't have any problem with what they've with them riding back there. Occasionally, every once in a while, at night, kids light off fireworks. It's no big deal, lasts for a few minutes. I think that kids are kids and they're gonna do that. In the past, going back to the 90s, there were groups of kids back then that they would ride. There was a lot more activity in the pit, but kids grow up, they move on, and then there's, always new kids, generations of kids moving in. And right now, there's almost no activity in the pit. Again, I am 9 Stowe Drive, so I'm probably the closest to the pit. I'm directly across from it. And I think that nothing can be done. Officer, I'm sorry that, you have to get pulled into this because I know your job is hard enough as it is. But putting up a fence, that's not certainly for me to decide. Seems like I think that kids will always get through anything. So if you put up a fence, they'll find a way to go around it anyway. There are probably bigger issues for this committee to be working on than, a noise in the pit that I think frankly is overblown. Again, it's very infrequent that I hear them. So,
Is your house directly on that sign road and directly at the pit?
correct, yes, I'm Etzion and Stowe.
And who lives at your house?
My wife and myself, and recently, my young daughter and her family, husband and young daughter.
And has any of the noise affected any of?
No. I mean, I think that when you hear it, it's just kind of in the background and you just, don't pay attention to it. But again, it's not, I heard they testified it's every day, and I don't think it's even every weekend that, that
How
the
often are
kids
you
are
home?
out there. Well, I'm retired, so I'm home every day. And one of my hobbies is to garden, so I'm outside a lot more than I'm in my house. So I would, hear them if they were there.
And is your garden facing towards the pit or in the front?
It faces in the pit. It's my backyard where the garden is.
Okay.
So I think
So the back of
that-
your property touches that sign.
correct, yes. So I think that again, with kids, nothing can be done. And these people that are riding right now, in a few years, they'll grow up, they'll move on. And such is life.
Okay,
All right,
thank you, appreciate it.
thank you.
Welcome.
Bill Ryan, One Stony Creek. I'm glad not everyone has this issue, and I'm sure sound dissipates. This is not just an issue of sound. It is a annoyance. It is a problem. It is aggravating on our end because we have One Stony Creek and Two Stony Creek, we're directly across, which clearly have complained about this issue. But the ultimate problem is now that within a few hours of when all this is happening, we find out that at Indian Mills Athletic Association, the fields are also ripped up. There was apparently some sort of vehicle that went through one of their side gates or side fences. So you have people out there twice trying to fix the fields there. It is not just a one location issue. They are running up and down on Atchison Road, and I understand kids will be kids. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but at one point I actually was one. And there are probably a lot of things I did stupidly, but that doesn't excuse the fact that there's trespassing going on. There's a liability issue that the owner of the property needs to, and is considering trying to address. Had a pleasant conversation with Mr. Casper the other day. He at least is coming out to check and watch his property when he can. He's 90, 87, whatever years old. He's not somebody that's going to go chasing and running down the field. But there are access points that should be barricaded and blocked, if at a minimum. Putting up an additional paper sign makes little to no sense. But ultimately, this will already be corrected if there's a development plan put in place. There's an ongoing conversation as it relates to a solar field, namely as it relates to the old landfill site. When you look at that property, one of the access points is the landfill site. So whatever this committee can do to help encourage that process to move along as quickly as possible, I would implore you to do that. That will then enable them to hopefully figure out their next step. My understanding is one of the organizations have an option that expires in October. Hopefully that will continue, because then it'll at least show a sign that somebody wants to develop that. That's the only way you're going to address this issue. Chasing them is frustrating, it's futile. But also, we do need to hold people accountable. I'm not saying the kids shouldn't find a place, but if somebody wants to sit there and say it's not a problem, let them come to your house.
I got you. I did, just on your point about the fences, we did have fences installed at Stony Creek at
Yes,
the end. And unfortunately, those type of vehicles, whether it be a dirt bike or whatever it is, an ATV, can find their way through the woods. So unless you fence everything, it's hard. You can't fence the whole world and keep people out. They're
nobody's
gonna
saying
find a
that.
way.
What we're trying to say is put barriers up.
Now, to your point, we're working hard to get the solar field in there. We think that would be perfect. And there's some issues with the state. So like everything else in the state, it takes, 3
Well,
times as long.
with all due respect, That's not an acceptable land. I'm a lobbyist.
I can't-
All right, I do this
Well,
for a
why don't
living.
you
right?
lobby for that? Why don't
I
I put
have
you in
offered
contact?
to talk to anybody who
Yeah,
wants
I'll
help
put you in
to do that,
contact with those
okay?
guys.
Because that, the fact that there are technicalities on what qualifies and what doesn't qualify just means that somebody hasn't figured out the best way to go around.
They may be able
address
to use
this.
you. Yep, their brownfield issues and all
Yes.
those issues,
I-
so.
From what I read, I can figure that part out.
Yeah, I will, but we'll put you in contact with them.
And I've had a great conversation with the attorney the other day.
With
I
Doug,
guess that's
yeah.
your partner or associate. Doug.
Correct. I was gonna
Steve?
wait till my
Yep.
solicitor's report, but since we're talking about it now.
Yes, sir.
Doug did have a conversation with,
Yes.
with the property owner. He also had a conversation with the representatives from Bighorn. They are trying to set up a time to meet and discuss what might be able to be done with the property. I just think with, summer schedules and whatnot, that meeting has not happened yet, but they are looking to, try to sit down with Bighorn and see if there can be some plan put in place.
Okay, and just one more thing, Bill, about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday when I did hear the bikes, I walked up, waved the boys over. There were 4 kids out there. They looked at me. They didn't come over. I continued to walk out, waved them over. They looked at me, didn't come over. When I got to the back, there were 2 dads back there, very nice gentlemen. I told them that they couldn't be there. They didn't have permission of the property owner. They said to me, hey, look, we understand. We're not going to come back now. Thank you for telling me. Well, we'd rather have our kids do this than be in therapy or have drug problems or whatever.
That's a false choice.
Well,
all due
I'm telling you
respect.
what they told me.
I understand it, but
Right.
that's a false choice.
So, sometimes if you just go back, I'm not suggesting you need to do this, but I was very comfortable going back to speaking to them. And once I spoke to the dads, they said, thanks very much for telling us. We won't come back. So if we do that as neighbors, maybe that'll help. But calling the
everything
police
help-
every time when they've got other things to do, and they can't go chasing through the woods. Number one, they're not allowed because somebody's gonna, crash into a tree and become paralyzed, and there'll be liability issues. So we're taking what you say seriously. We're on it, as the troopers have gone out every time. I've gone over. I know other neighbors have gone over. And, it's just like I have the gun club behind me, or we used to have
Yeah.
ADCO as well. I moved here and I knew the gun club was there, and I just becomes part of the.
Gun club's a registered purpose of business, right? ATCO was a registered business. This is not a registered business.
That's
This is
correct.
trespassing.
I agree
And the
with you.
fact that everybody wants to make an excuse is not acceptable.
Yeah, well, if I wanted to make an excuse, I wouldn't have gone over and asked those people
I'm
not
not
to come
saying,
back.
I'm trying to say, that is not the purpose of that property.
That's correct. I agree. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Come on up.
If I pull over. Yeah, so I just wanted to say, I'm not right on next to the pit. I'm in the neighborhood close to it, so I hear the kids. We do see the kids a lot when we're hiking and on the roads, and every time I see the kids, we wave. They're very respectful. They're nice kids. That's one of the reasons why I moved to Shamong, because I wanted my kids to experience that. I grew up in Northwest Jersey, but we lived in Central Jersey. I disagree. I think definitely being out in the woods and doing stuff is a good step towards leading a good life as a kid and avoiding drugs and sitting on the screen. So I'd way rather have them out in the woods. The kids, is there another alternative? Is there another place for them to go to ride their dirt bikes? No. Again, sorry for having you guys dragged into this. It kind of is what it is. I hope that nobody thinks to waste our tax money on putting up more barriers, because we've all walked in the woods. You see the barriers and the trails around them. It's a waste. I personally like the sound of the bikes, maybe annoying to some. I think of the kids that are having fun. Think back to my own childhood. I think it's a great thing. It's why I moved to Shamong 18 years ago now. So I don't see it as a problem. And I know that there's a lot of people that do not see it as a problem. Not sure what else to say, but not a problem for me.
Sir, what was your last name? Sir,
Schmidlin.
Midland?
Sorry, Schmidlin.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Robert King, 903 at Sign Road.
Hi, Robert.
And of course, I know kids are gonna be kids, and especially in the pit. But of course, some access points are on private property back there. I mean, not of course, Haas's Pit's, private property. No, another resident in town's private property. And the only reason why I know that is because, of course, me and him, you know, with my deer club, we go hunting back there all the time. So there's still other access points. Then also putting up a fence will be absolutely pointless because kids are still gonna cut holes in the fence. I know that for a fact because I've seen it in other places, especially when I worked for Brendan T. Burns State Park. They were literally cutting holes in the fence or making paths around the fence. Like it's absolutely pointless and it'll be a waste of our taxpayers' money out here. And no offense to you, Troop, but especially for them going out and chasing the kids down, that's just asking for a big problem and a bigger incident that's gonna happen, like a kid's gonna end up getting hurt or end up getting killed. I know kids are gonna be kids. I know, of course, you know, but out here in the country, we're gonna do what of course kids do. We came out here to be away from the city, have a little peace and quiet, and then of course, you know, every once in a while here in the dirt bike track or this or that. Even of course, my next door neighbor, you know, two houses down from 903. He literally put in a motocross track behind his house. I have no problem with it because we moved out here to be out here and enjoy the country. Not be in the city where of course any noise is a problem. We came out here to enjoy our lives as ourselves, not as, of course, where everyone's trying to control everything. That's personally my personal opinion on it. But that's all I had to say, Mr. DeCroce.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Anybody else have anything they'd like to?
Well. King 903 outside, and that's my grandson. I'm gonna partially agree with. I can't get over it.
That's what he's,
What?
it's nice to see you up and around.
Barely. You have to, I had spine surgery 4 months ago, but kids will be kids. I've raised 3 grandsons. This is one of them that I still can't get rid of, but he's a good kid. He belongs to the fire company and he gets out on a lot of calls, and if I'm not mistaken, there has been some serious injuries in the past in that pit. And like he said, this, maybe the ones that want their kids, I agree, they should have fun, but you also have to be respectful of other people's property. I have a farm and I would not be happy if they were riding through my field. And I've seen it, we have our farm fenced in, but I've seen them do it in other fields. I've seen them do it at our soccer fields and up in all their sports fields. They're just not respectful. They're not respectful for other people's property. And like our one neighbor now, he moved in and we saw big piles of dirt. I'm talking now. They put in big piles of dirt and we found out they put in pits. And I know one of our, I'm not gonna mention names, but somebody else had it here in town for his boy with the, what are the bikes?
Motocross?
No, the BM, what are the
BMX bikes.
yeah, they put in jumps and stuff for that kid. So maybe the ones that want, you know, people are saying, okay, there's no more racetrack and there's no more this and that. Maybe a group needs to get together and put in a place for them to do it.
Buy Murphy's Pit and make a motocross.
Why not? Why not? You'd make money on it, you know? I mean, there's always alternatives, but you have to consider everybody's point of view. You know, that, I get annoyed sometimes when our neighbor, a couple doors up, they're having a big party and all their friends come in and they're riding all back through the woods, which is state woods. And 11, 12 o'clock at night, it gets pretty noisy. And I mean, they are roaring and I'm across from the campground and we have people who are pulling in and out of the campgrounds. They're coming from Goshen. And sometimes it goes on all night. And I'm old, I need my sleep. But I don't call the police because he's not gonna go back in the woods. Well, you know, unless you get one of their bikes or whatever and go after them. But, you know, some of the people that live around there, they have to know who's doing it. You know, and maybe.
I don't know that that's the, I'm sorry, it's not my turn to talk.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case because I've ridden those trails.
Yeah.
They go miles.
Oh, yeah,
There's
yeah.
kids from 20 miles. away.
And they go and I see them, you know, we're right in, I'm totally surrounded by the word. We're right across from the family campground on Avenue. And we're totally surrounded by the state forest. And You know, and they're going back in those trails too. So the state with their rangers, they impound them. If they catch them back on those trails, they impound the vehicles, which gets a little pricey, I would think. But, you know, they still do it. I don't know how you would stop it. I really don't know how you would stop it. But I think that they all need to learn a little bit more respect.
All right,
for
thank you,
everybody.
Mrs. King. I agree with that. Anybody else would like to say anything?
That's all.
Good evening.
Good evening, John Ronaldson, 11 Stony Creek. Thank you guys for all the time you guys put into our community. I moved here in 85. Back then, Murphy's Pit was like an off-road track, like something you'd see on TV. Trucks lined up and down the road, dirt bikes, quads. It was a huge place to ride. But, you know, things have slowed down, you know, not as many people go there. But I think that's one of the reasons why people move out here is to enjoy the outdoors, whether it's on a horse, on a dirt bike, hunting, camping, fishing, whatever it is. I think it's just kids being kids out there. I understand the concern where they live. It's loud sometimes. I don't hear it. You know, I grew up listening to the gun range. I don't hear that anymore. I don't hear the quads or dirt bikes back there. I can't tell the difference, like they said, whether it's a gunshot or it's a firework in the woods, but I would agree maybe that these guys have more sense to shoot them off in the middle of a sand pit than out in the middle of the woods somewhere. But when they call the cops can't chase. If they put up a fence, who's gonna pay for it? Kids are gonna cut the fence. I've seen it at other sand pits in New Jersey where they try to fence in certain areas and kids are gonna get bolt cutters, and you can get them at Spots Hardware for $20 and cut a hole and then cut another hole and another hole, and if they come from that way, I'll cut a hole over there. So I think it's gonna be a waste of money. It might be a deterrent initially, but people are still gonna get back there if they want to. We've had a dirt bike stolen from our neighborhood, an ATV stolen from our neighborhood all this past 30 to 45 days. These guys need to be, you know, figuring out who, you know, is coming into our homes, into our backyards and stealing our property. Who's breaking into the barriers of Stony Creek Fields with their trucks and tearing the fields up. Because if you try to shut down Murphy's Pit, they're gonna find a spot to ride, which might be our soccer fields, which are now getting torn up. So, and you guys don't investigate, like you guys don't have like detectives that look into the thefts of the dirt bikes and stuff. Is that correct? Like you guys gotta do it yourselves? Or no? Okay.
They're all at Woodgate.
I don't know what that is, but,
We have a detective bureau.
okay. So I think that the troopers need to spend more time on catching the bad guys and figuring out real problems rather than, you know, having to come out to Shamong, drive 20 minutes or whatever to come and drive up to the pit, look, no one's there, and then whatever. I think the time can be used better somewhere else.
All right, thank you, John.
All right,
Appreciate your
thanks.
comments. I will say that the towns surrounding Shamong have now seen greater criminal activity. And we're very fortunate where we are that we have very limited, almost non-existent criminal, you know, crimes going on. So, but you should lock your cars, which we never had to do. You lock your doors, which we never really had to do. Because unfortunately, I think the direct result of COVID and having these kids locked away for 2 years has made them lose their sense of what's right and wrong. They're spending too much time watching TikTok and being on, you know, the screen to understand that what they see is not what they should be doing. So we really are blessed. I still call this a little slice of heaven, but just be mindful that we are in a different time now because of what our government has mandated on its citizens. So with that, anybody else have any other comments to say? If not, then we're going to close the meeting too. Yes, sir.
And good evening, James Moore, 11 Stowe Drive.
Hi, James.
Been living in Shamong about 10 years now. And I hear the dirt bikes, I do. But it don't bug me. I've seen these guys as well ride. And they've done nothing to me as well. But I'm sorry that they mess with you guys, but I ain't got no problem with them. That's it.
Was your house adjacent to At Sign Road? And it's adjacent also to where they ride? And you live there with your family, you have children?
Yes, I do.
All right, and is anybody bothered by that?
No.
Okay, all right.
Nope.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, you only get one turn, Mrs. King, but because it's you can say.
You
can have 3 turns.
I just have a comment. I've been here 60 years. My husband's born and raised here and he's 83. But I remember before, the pit's been there for a long time, but before all these developments were there were parties going on where your developments are every weekend. They were coming from Philly. They were coming, it was, I know that you know. I remember when you were kids, so. They were they didn't have, we didn't have the cell phone, but they were advertising, they were coming from all the cities. Go to the pit, right? Go to the pit, yeah. I know nothing, but they, that's been going on for forever.
Yeah, understand.
All these houses, if they look in the backyard, they'll probably see little fire rings there.
So, yeah, we came afterwards.
Yeah, you knew where the pit was, I know, they all do.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. King.
But
Any-
you're gonna go somewhere.
I got you. Anybody else have any other comments they'd like to say?
I have a non-pit comment.
Yes, sir, come on up. Welcome.
There you
Good.
go. Brendan O'Brien, 27 Tuckerton.
Hi, Brendan.
So I got a notice from the school, my daughter's at the elementary school. I got a notice from the school about lead in the teacher's lounge. And then,
Did you say lead in the teacher's lounge?
sorry, lead in the water in the teacher's lounge
Got
from
it.
the faucet, at like a high level. Did some research on lead. The other things that they tested looked fine, but there was nothing in the test results about the water fountains. So I was just wondering if the water fountains have been tested or if there's any communication coming out.
I don't
about
know,
testing the water
because
fountain.
the school building is totally separate from us. I know that, like the ball fields, we have a water fountain over Dingletown that gets tested. So I'm gonna guess that a school does, but I don't have anything concrete on that. You should really try touching base with them.
School board meeting?
School board meeting or
Okay.
just reach out to the superintendent or the business administrator over there.
All
They
right.
might be able to tell you for sure.
Great.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming out. We'll see what we can find out as well. You can talk about whatever you want.
I haven't been able to come out to a lot of the meetings and
Yes.
I'm on the cemetery board committee. And I understand it was brought up in the past about having electric put in a shed. And we've been doing good business here. Was able to attend the last meeting here. And
That's unfortunate that we're doing good business there.
But
It's an inevitability.
And we have big competition with the one in Medford and they're charging double.
Okay.
Charging double, but our place isn't looking as good. We kind of, I think we do much better if we looked a little better. And when I got my electric bill this month, I see that got all kinds of increases. So if we aren't able to move on with this and get electric, little shed for the maintenance and electric that we could put irrigation in and water, I think the price is gonna go up. Keep going up and up, and I believe we do have the funds now, don't we?
We have a capital improvements fund, which has more than enough money.
And my
for the
husband, when I
electric.
told him about it, one of the reasons I was coming here tonight, and I said to him that the biggest cost was putting in that pole.
Mhm.
That, what was it, thousands and thousands of
Yeah, I
dollars
think it's
just
around 16,000, something like that,
16,000?
for the electrical pole, the electric to be installed.
To run the wires back. to the
Well, that's the
shed.
hookup, yeah.
My husband said, and I didn't have a chance to go down there and look to, I passed it all the time, but he said there's a pole at the other end.
Well,
The
the
pole's
thing
already
is we
there.
need to have a pole put on the property.
Isn't that pole?
Yeah,
It's
it's
right
it's at the street, but we still need one more pole to
We
bring it.
can't use a pole if it's on the street.
No,
Need
we
a
can't,
need a
but
pole
where
to
we-
cross over. That pole, I believe, is on the other side of the street. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I
But
can't.
in order to get the power drop, we need to have the infrastructure.
I thought it was on- I'll have to look, but
Yeah.
I thought it was on the same
I think
side.
it's on the same side, but we need to have it back further, because the site that we were picking for that was,
Well, take the site back on my site.
Well, we did have a discussion about this at prior meetings and the cost was very substantial. One of the things that we'd like to do would be put lights out at the ball fields before we put lights out at the cemetery. So that was, yeah. So, and the other thing is we want to look at solar lights. You know, let's not, when you're looking at $20,000 to put a pole and run a wire and then run irrigation, which is substantially more.
Just irrigation, we need, shed with some things.
Absolutely. You buy a plane, you need a shed, you have a shed, you gotta have the maintenance. We did talk about this.
But isn't there money? We have the money. We
Well-
have the money.
You have, it's roughly 38 to 40,000 that's left over from the original build.
But the township has, don't we give money out of our tax, a little bit of.
Well, I mean, we're trying to prioritize where we spend these funds, whether or not it's the roads or whether or not it's the fields.
Everybody feels for a long time.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know, we have a great cemetery. It's right up the road. It's beautiful and it's starting to be filled with people. We have new signage out on 206. We have signage at 5 Points. It's called the Pinelands Country Cemetery. Our rates are much less than our neighbors. And it's not something I'm dead set against, but at a time where everybody is getting squeezed, and I'm concerned about people who's lost their jobs in our town that don't have the money for food, and their taxes are going up $500 or $600 in 1 year, I find outrageous.
My tax bill. And speaking of the whoever said about the lead in the water, go to your school board meetings. Because I raised 4 kids, I've raised 3 grandkids. They've gone to all through the school systems, they've gone to Seneca and the other high schools. I don't know any of you here that have high school students, but you walk in those high schools, big as those buildings are and as much money as we're putting into them, there's very little there for the kids. We have to pay extra for everything for the kids. You have to pay for sports, you have to pay for parking, you have to pay for everything. And you walk in that big building and there's multiple principals, vice principals, assistants, secretaries, all kinds, and it's all offices. First time I went in there, I was shocked. I'm like, well, where do the kids go? There's hardly any rooms for the kids. It's all administration. And they're making big money.
Big bucks. Same thing at our elementary school.
Right.
There's 600 kids now, and you have a superintendent, you have a president, vice presidents.
Wagner was here, was the principal, and my girlfriend was the secretary. She would call if they needed a sub. She did the bus routes, she did everything. Now they have 5 people to do that.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. So you guys have to start getting out there and getting on these people. The waste there is ridiculous. You see what they're spending for, I saw this morning, I went by both schools, I'm 77, I'm still working. I just went back to work. I went by on the way to work and both schools are there and there's big balloons out front. Who's paying for that? I don't want to pay for balloons. I want some of my money back that I just paid to sue or to the tax office. I don't want to buy balloons for them. That's it.
All right.
No
All right, thank you. It sounds
Mayor,
like we're
Mayor
round-
King, thanks for coming out. I don't know what the capital improvements fund is for at the cemetery, if we can in fact use it for the capital improvements. We arbitrarily said we're done. We've got plots, we've got the legal mapping, all the infrastructure, and we have 40 grand left in there that it sounds like we're going to reabsorb. I don't even know if that's possible, but we have people that are lining up to use our cemetery, and then they're going to have crabgrass growing for perpetuity on top of their plots. That's all I've got to say.
Anybody else have anything to say? Yes, sir.
Two things real quick. To of course deal with the crabgrass, sod services would probably be the best for that.
They are good.
And then number 2, I mean, of course, I know for a fact it's not a big issue, but can we maybe change the name of the town back to Indian Mills, please? Because Indian Mills Fire, Indian Mills Elementary, Indian Mills Memorial, Indian Mills United Methodist Church, everything's Indian Mills.
Yeah, I actually preferred, and I used Indian Mills for a long, long time until I finally decided I'll use Shamong. And when you call up Amazon, they laugh and giggle and say, "What's that?" So my understanding
We
is,
really should change it back to Indian Mills. That's.
It was
the
actually
actual name of this
incorporated
town.
we were incorporated in 1852 as Shamong, and then somewhere in the 80s, it went on a ballot vote. And the residents at that time, surprisingly to me, chose to keep it Shamong and not change it to Indian Mills.
Anybody that voted for that.
It was, I'm telling you that that's the history that I've been given, and
Yeah, I
that's,
just wanted to see if we could maybe
what I'm providing
try
you.
to take it back to Indian Mills.
Well, yeah, I think it's a nice suggestion. We'll see if there's any appetite for on the board, but I also like the name.
Back, I'll scratch yours.
All right, now we're rounding third base. Anybody else that has to say anything? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're going to close the meeting to public comment. If anybody needs to leave or wants to leave at this point, we won't take it personally. We're going to try and move as quickly as we can through the rest of the meeting. First, we're going to move to items for discussion and possible official action. Number one is the approval of the August 6th, 2024 regular and executive session meeting minutes, which everybody's had an opportunity to review. If there are no questions or comments, can we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Zender,
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Yes.
Ms. Mazitas,
Yes.
Mr. Kochi.
Yes, next is a discussion on the requested changes to the current ordinance language pertaining to cat colonies under ordinance 2017-11.
I'm going to recommend we table that because I reached out to Ann and with email and never heard anything back. Invited her to this meeting, so I don't know if maybe the holiday she's traveling or something, but I haven't heard anything back, and that was the missing piece we have.
Perfect. Okay, great. Unless there's an objection, we're going to table that for further discussion at another time.
I think we
Uh,
already addressed Murphy's Pit.
Yeah, next is on the list is Murphy's Pit update. I think we've probably given an update to everybody. We probably beat a dead horse. So we're gonna not make any other comments on that. Next is posting of advertisement for equipment operator.
And at this point in time, we've received 2 or 3 applications. They have until September the 16th. It's advertised on our website and a couple other county websites. We're going through the task of replacing somebody who's been here with us for a very long time, has lived in the town, and him and his brother Gary and Slicky Welsh have done a great job, and very difficult time replacing him.
Okay. When is he expected to leave?
The end of the year.
The end of the year. Okay, so we'll have an opening, and what will position be?
Equipment operator.
Okay, and it's what does that entail?
They need to have a CDL, Class A, hopefully with a tanker endorsement. And if not a tanker endorsement, that they agree to get one within 90 days. And just experience with light machinery as well as some of the heavy machinery.
Okay, great. All right, next we got the 2024 gypsy moth egg mass count and recommended treatment.
So at this point in time, they've done an egg mass count and they've recognized 35 acres in one block that they're recommending for treatment. And with doing so, the Shamong would be responsible for supplying personnel to assist with the program, which is putting out the balloon markers and so forth for the plane to do the spraying. And we would pay the full cost of the aerial treatment. And that only BT, which is Bacillus, I don't know, this BT is the insecticide they used, and they've used that for decades. We would be financing it. They're going to be putting in for a grant through the US Forestry. They're hoping to get 50% reimbursement. They're saying that treatment would be between 60 and $65 an acre. With 35 acres is between 2,100 and 2,300 hours. To move forward, the committee would need to approve this to be part and name myself as the representative for the 2025 LDD Gypsy Moth Suppression Program, and the areas that they're highlighting to be treated are on either side of Route 206, south of Stokes Road, on either side. I gave you a map in your email over the weekend and in your handout. If you remember, if you go back to 2006, 7, 8, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars treating gypsy moths. So quite pleased to see that it's just such a small area. And it's a wooded area. It's not very, it's near homes, but not right on top of homes at this point in time. But since it's got so much foliage there, do they spread? Do they multiply? Quite possible. So
Would this spray also kill any mosquitoes now that we're hearing about mosquito-borne illnesses?
I don't have an answer for you on that.
Okay, all right, maybe we can check on that. And if there's somebody that wants to opt out, could they do it if they're a residential property?
We did have that option previous times where they would mark the property with, I guess, a different color blue, and I forget what they did, but there
Right.
was something aerial and maps that they, but this is a very small consolidated area compared to what we had last time. If you remember last time, we had large chunks of
Yes.
our area that were being sprayed. So you know, at this point in time, it would just be, we would need to have to get back to them by November the 29th if we're going to continue to participate in this. And at this point in time, I don't know if or when we'll get final word on any kind of grant programs. Like I said, in the past, we did get reimbursed. But we're not looking at the hundreds of thousands of dollars treatment costs either. We're looking at $2,300 is the top number estimated.
Got it. Okay, that's good news.
So I don't know if you guys want to make a decision tonight or look for.
Is there an appetite for a motion? If not, we'll consider it the next meeting.
I'll make a motion because I think it's important to treat it now ahead, get it done out the way before we lose 35 acres of trees and potential spread. I mean, it could, right now it's 35 acres, but months from now, it may be a lot more than that.
Is there a second?
I'll second. You beat me in.
Mr. Wilkinson,
Yes.
Ms. Mazitis,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Zender,
Yes.
Mr. DeCroce.
Yes, next is 2023-24 Annual Municipal Court Visitation Report. As many of you know, we have consolidated our court, which used to be here in this very room for Shamong in Medford Lakes. So what we used to pay $50,000 for per year approximately, we now have cut that off. We don't pay anything, and it is depending upon the year. It's actually a fundraiser for us, so it's something that brings some revenue into the coffers. Can you tell us how that visitation went, Sue?
This is, right now they have they did a visitation back in the summer, and at that time they felt that it was a well-managed court. And they felt that everything was running efficiently and effectively. And at this point in time, they would like to review the court again on October the 15th during a live in-session visitation. So it's kind of like a two-prong. They reviewed all the documentation. Now they wanted to see a live court going in session. And the mayor's right, we turned that court around from losing a lot of money a year, anywhere between 40 and 60,000 to this year right now. I think the loss year to date is like $600 or $700. So something that's much more sustainable. And there were a few years there that we were making money, but after COVID, tickets weren't getting written. You still had the overhead, the infrastructure. So it's you know, we renegotiated, took another $7,000, I think it was, off of our annual fee to Medford Lakes, and we're pretty much at that sweet spot where we're not making a lot of money, we're not losing a lot of money, so something we can sustain for now.
So we like it that the troopers have common sense here. We don't want a police officer behind every tree. And that can be somewhat gentle with our residents and also to do the right thing when there is law breaking going on. So we thank you for that, because I think you use a lot of common sense and your troopers use a lot of common sense. Next is the Burlington County Joint Insurance Fund, also known as the JIF. It's a member update for Fund 2024, and the 2025 JIF asset listings have been verified. This is our insurance that we have for the town. We're a member of what's known as the Joint Insurance Fund. It's a way to keep our insurance down, and a bunch of communities in South Jersey are a member of this. Sue, can you give us any other information on that?
Yeah, they did bring to our attention that we had the elected officials seminar. We received a credit of $1,250 for that. We get additional funds through optional safety budget, safety incentive program, cyber risk management and wellness. We've reached the max of that every year. Our claims is, you know, we have no accidents to be claimed for the last couple of years. So, you know, our employees take the steps that are necessary and keep things in check. And I think the biggest claim we've ever had was we had wire transfer fraud, which was found to be not our fault. We were the victim, not the initiator on that. But as a result, they keep that loss stays on our record, I think 3 years.
Okay.
So we're, I guess, 2 years into that.
All right, great. Next is the stormwater management requirements and update policies which have been completed. Sue, do you want to do that, or shall Steve give us an update?
I can do it.
Okay.
And what happens is they've had a lot of changes to stormwater management at the state level, and as a result, we've had to rewrite some of our policies and all. That's been completed, and with the help of Anthony Lopez and Joe Hirschover at ERI, we have submitted that to the state. They're happy with this. We've updated our website for additional documents that they wanted on there, and I think we meet all the requirements at this point in time. So, and then I'm sure the state will be out to review it again. They usually roll in here about twice a year, either doing things on audit online where I'm sending them our policies and so forth, or they do also do on-site visits as well.
Okay, we're pretty lucky in Shamong. We don't have very many puddles, even when we get major downpours, unless we've disturbed the earth a little bit, then you might see something, but we're pretty fortunate that way. Next is the Veterans Banner Program. I understand we've received our first application. So what we're trying to do is have signs in what I call downtown Shamong and various areas, maybe near the cemetery and the schools, that honor our veterans who served here in Shamong, lived here in Shamong. And so if you or anybody that you know is a veteran and they would like to be honored, we'll have their picture up there with a welcome to Shamong, and we're working on the design. I think it'll be neat because you'll know that you're in Shamong, number one, and we'll also be honoring those people who have served our country. So could you tell us about the first application?
Well, it's one of our local residents who's been here since, I believe, the early mid-80s. He did submit a photo of himself, and that's a key. We want a picture. You've probably seen this in Vincenttown and other areas where they hang the banners, and they're in patriotic colors, and they will honor the veteran with dates of service, and their name is posted on it. But we can't just arbitrarily put people out there where we need them to, the family or the person themselves, to provide us with a photo and give us permission to do that. So if
Okay.
you know of anybody that lives in town that served, please ask them to get in touch with myself or Joanne, and we'll do our best to help them out and get them get the banner program going further. Because one banner is just not what we're looking for. We're looking for maybe a couple dozen of them or so.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you. All right, next we're moving to resolutions 2024 R-74, governing body certification of the annual audit.
And this is a resolution that all the committee members sign. And that by signing, they are verifying that at a minimum, they have reviewed and are familiar with the section of annual report entitled Comments and Recommendations, and our audit was clean. We had no comments or recommendations again this year, so it's a great job by our finance staff, and they'll be signing that affidavit tonight if they haven't done that already. So
Okay.
we can go ahead and submit that to the state.
All right, great. We do not need a motion on
We
that.
do need a
We
motion.
do need a motion. So for resolution 2024 R-74, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Ms. Mazitis?
Yes.
Mr. Zender?
Yes.
Mr. Kochi?
Yes, 2024 R-75, which authorizes the execution of a shared service agreement with the Township of Tabernacle for certified recycling coordinator services.
So this is a shared service agreement we've had in place for several years now, and we need to renew it because it's coming to an end this year. And basically what happens is we get somewhere between $2,500 and maybe $3,000 in our recycling tonnage grant annually. If I go and meet all the demands to take all the classes to become a certified recycling tonnage coordinator, it's going to cost us about $6,000. And then I'm going to need to take classes every year. So what we do, and I'm trained, I just don't have the certificate. I do all the documentation, it gets reviewed by somebody who is certified, and we pay them $200 a year. It's much more efficient use of our dollars and my time to do it this way. So it's a renewal of an ongoing agreement that we have at Tabernacle on this.
If there are no questions or comments, can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Zender?
Yes.
Ms. Mazitis?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. DeCroce?
Yes, next is 2024 R-76, which is a resolution in opposition to the proposed legislation which bypasses local zoning for home-based businesses. Steve, are you aware of this thing?
A little bit. So it's essentially the state is proposing legislation that would take some of the local control away from local governments as far as what businesses can be run out of a home-based operate, or out of your home without and again, it's taking away the local control. Would be certain businesses that would be you would be allowed to do it. The townships would not be able to prohibit it. There's a number of townships, and I think the League of Municipalities has come out in opposition to this state legislation, and the league is urging townships to adopt a resolution in opposition. I did talk with Doug about it a little bit. I don't know that our office has any recommendation one way or the other. It's just a deferral to the township committee as to what you guys all feel is right for your town.
Do you have an idea of what businesses that we might prohibit that would be permitted by the state?
I don't know the legislation, so I don't know which types of businesses are prohibited and which are targeted by the legislation. I apologize.
That's all right. Sue, do you have any idea generally?
From what I know and what I've read, and I think Mr. Woods had some information on this as well, or you're working with the legislators on this, that the, by what the Assembly Bill is proposed to do, creates like a hole in our ordinances, and our ordinances will be, you know, at that point in time, things that we currently don't permit as a home-based business could get through until we would have such time to pass an ordinance to close the hole back up again.
Mhm.
And as you know, an ordinance, you gotta draft it, introduce it, second hearing, final adoption, and advertise it. So you're looking at 2+ months. So anybody who's suave enough on that, could do something at that point in time. Now, Mr. Woods, I know you were saying that you thought something, they might take some more steps on your end, but I don't know if you moved the holiday and all, if you've heard anything more.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a break in the legislature until next week. They typically break from July to September. So I just wanted to see if there is, this bill's still in committee. Oftentimes when they change stuff around, amends it, people speak out. They, make it weaker, make it stronger, stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to see where that was going to play before making any definitive statements on it. I like some things about it, dislike some things about it. But I mean, I could read some of the things it wouldn't permit. I mean, the activity would have to be compatible with residential use. The volume of guests who visit the residential dwelling cannot be in excess of what is residential use. No outside appearance of a home business, including 2 parking signs, lights. Volume of delivery or trucks and other vehicle traffic, not in excess of normal residential use. No fumes, vibration, glare, noise, odors, electrical interference. So it's pretty much, I think what it aims to do is just say, hey, if you have, if you're a realtor or an accountant or something, and you set up shop with you have one employee, maybe set up shop at your home, let's not make you go through this excess zoning board activity. Now, I'm sure there's something I'm missing of a business that, might cause trouble, that would follow all these laws, but that you would like to know is coming into your town. It's not something I can think of off the top of my head. So that's why I'm kind of, a little abstention on when it comes to this, because I would like to just learn more about what the final bill will be.
Yeah, when I was reading through it, it looks to me like they're actually putting some criteria to a home business. I mean, if you go through it, you can't increase any solid waste. You can't have a discharge of sewage that wouldn't be normally part of that neighborhood. I mean, you can't have any equipment that produces noise, fumes, glare, odors, electrical interference, any kind of interference with radio or television reception. Obviously nothing that would be illegal to begin with. I mean, I was hard pressed to find any kind of home business that would be legal that we wouldn't want.
This is just to bypass local zoning too.
Right.
Obviously, if you wanted to do something more, you could go to local zoning. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of brings my
I mean,
mind back to
you can't put a parking lot in, so you can't like say I'm gonna have a home business and now I want to increase my parking. That's not allowed for this. It seems to me that actually puts more criteria that we could look at for home businesses than right now that we don't have, right now you accept a home business, right? Unless we have something to look at to say you can't have that home business. All right, and this seems to put some meat on that. Like we can look and say, all right, well, you can't have that home business because you're causing electrical interference, or you've increased your sewage use, or you're doing something that is, something that would not be in compliance with this ordinance.
So it seems to me the state has couched this as if we're getting more freedoms, but it really isn't.
I don't.
Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't agree with that, because this is just to bypass local zoning. So it's just saying if you were going to go to zoning for any of this, for anything that doesn't fall outside of this, which you would have to go for zoning anyway, for all of the stuff it's mentioned, you just wouldn't have to go for it anyway. I don't know what they're trying to, I'm thinking regular office type activity. So it doesn't add anything more, because you would have had to have gone to zoning anyway for all of the stuff mentioned. It just, I'm sure somebody complained to the sponsor of this bill in their town that they had to go to zoning, for a very basic thing, and that's where this came from. One of the sponsoring the assembly is actually probably the most libertarian member of the state caucus, the state house, so I doubt he would sponsor any bill that puts more restrictions in. But I guess my mind comes to unintended consequences, maybe the conversation we had about the drug rehab facilities in the middle of a residential area. They could probably not really come into contact with any of these carve outs here that you would have to go to zoning for. So there might be unintended consequences, but pretty neutral on this because I
build
do
on-
like avoiding government when you can and all.
To build on what Neil said, because Neil really is the only person here who got to the core of this. What they're trying to do is prevent a municipality from either excluding something based upon a type of business, a category, a use group, or overlook something, or prevent lawsuits that would say this is exclusionary zoning. You're trying to block Brian's business by identifying it and changing the rule. What they're trying to do here is like what they do with the DEP and building codes. They're trying to create criteria that create a way around specifically naming uses and disqualifying businesses or function based upon performance criteria, sewage, radiation, noise, environmental influence. That's the idea. They're trying to pivot to a different way. Nobody seems to know what the hell to make out of this, so I'm inclined to oppose anything new that takes away right from our home rule at this time to zone our town as we see fit. But I think that that's the actual intention, is to create performance criteria and not just an arbitrary name, because names mean nothing today. Everybody comes up with a new job title. A company name doesn't have to mean anything. So, you could just change the name of your business or what you do into some gobbledygook and try to sue and say, well, I'm not in that zoning list of excluded uses in the R2 zone. So they're trying to come up with concrete criteria to exclude.
Well, as most of you know, I'm always complaining that I hate when the state is putting additional mandates on us to do something. When they come along and say, okay, we're gonna make it so that you don't have the restrictions, that people don't have to go into a zoning board to operate a business, then I'm inclined to say, wow, they're actually doing something that is helpful to our citizens. Every time you want to do something with your property, you ought not to have to run in and go to the zoning board or building inspector to do something at your property. So that's why I'm a little bit torn with this, is that I want to get government out of our business, as much as we can. And if this is one of the ways that allows our people in our town to still have the protection, so they don't have a neighbor that comes in and does something, a knucklehead move, but not having you to have to go in to the zoning board every time you want to do something. So I'm not really clear. Maybe we need to wait, but I'm just not clear. But I agree with.
I support that, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it's clear. It might be a positive step. It might be a trip. Don't
Right,
know.
right. So maybe we should get some more clarity, and if there's no motion to move forward, we'll just table it and perhaps deal with it next month.
Okay.
But I appreciate everybody's comments. So is there a motion to for 2024 R-76 would be a motion, a resolution in opposition to proposed legislation bypassing local zoning for home-based businesses?
I'll make the motion.
If there's no second, it dies. Seeing and hearing none, there's no second, the motion will be tabled. Next is 2024.
I meant to say I wanted to table it.
Well, there you go. Well, then the motion was to table this.
All right.
And is there a second for that?
I'll second the table.
There you go.
Okay, Mr. Zender,
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes, to
Mr.
table.
Zitis,
Yes.
and Mr. Kochi.
Yes, thanks for the clarity.
That was confusing.
It's in my own head right now.
All right, next
think
is,
the one
we're
that-
rounding third base. 2024 R-77, which authorizes the cancellation of property taxes for a totally disabled veteran, block 9.05, lot 12. I'm happy that we get to do this for our veterans. I reach out for the governor once again to reimburse towns like ours that are giving our veterans the opportunity to live in our town tax-free. But what that does, it puts the burden on everybody else to pay more. So with that comment, is there, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Zender?
Yes.
Ms. Macedas?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes, there are no ordinance this evening. Next is the approval or denial of the attached bill list in the amount of $1,592,650.38. Sue, can you give members of the public a breakdown of where that $1.6 million is going?
Yes, $504,500 is going to Lemby District, $315,500 is going to Shamong District. That totals $1,420,000 or 89.16% of our bill list. We have a once a year payment of $24,000, and we also have a quarterly payment of $15,000 going into the Indian Mills Volunteer Fire Company. So the rest of that, which is roughly about $140,000, is insurances, taxes, salaries, keeping the lights on, normal vendor bills.
Okay, and no unusual expenses this month?
We had a couple of repairs. That was probably about $12,000 total between roads and equipment.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? If there are none, can we have a motion to approve the attached bill list?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Zender?
Yes.
Ms. Macedas?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
I vote no. All right, next we go to the reports. Township Engineer, good evening, Anthony.
Hey, doing?
How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Anthony, use that microphone, would you, so people in Zoom land can hear you.
So I'll keep it short this month. There's only a couple of things on here as part of your compliance for your stormwater permit for your municipality. You have to keep your infrastructure maps updated. We're in the process of finishing the street sweeping map. That's due in January, but we should have it over to you guys before probably the end of this week. Most of the road program projects are in the process of being closed out. The materials have been in for testing. We're just waiting for the testing results to get back, and then we'll be able to close out those grants for reimbursement.
The Mayor's Road on that sign road looks really good.
Thank you.
You're not happy? All right, well, I think it looks good. I
They
just,
missed all the potholes.
well, we'll get to them.
And it's like they did this and then they stopped and then they went over it and left the potholes and they. I've never seen a
Well,
road paved like that.
We'll keep an eye on that and make sure that there's nothing shows through. Yeah.
They started, they started, they stopped, they started, they stopped.
So that's.
We'll check it
we'll
out.
Keep an eye on if anything develops, and that's something that they're still in maintenance bond for, and they can still get out
No,
there.
but
and
I'm
fix
saying
that
they never
stuff.
paved it.
Is it something that just didn't get paved yet? It's not within the
Do
program?
any of you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they skipped areas, like say it's a 3 mile lane thing, they
Mhm.
did 500 feet here and then 1,000 feet down the road, they did another 500 feet. Rather than going from point A to
Yeah.
B to C, they went A to D.
And I believe the intent is for it all to be paved. So I'll talk to Joe and see. I'm sure there was a reason behind not going all the way through it, but. it's
In the
something I think-
past, they've always started at the township line in Medford
Mhm.
and went to 206.
Yeah.
We didn't do that this time on purpose because the section up by you was in far worse shape than what they paved 25 years
We
ago.
gave deference to the mayor of that sign road. They'll get there.
But when they did, okay, so when they started by the deer park. You know, where the
Yes.
tunnel of trees,
Mhm.
they did. A little bit, and then they didn't do anything. I've never seen a road paved in sections like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's different phases to this project as well, and it's a continuing project, and.
One of the bigger
Yeah.
problems is, Mrs. King, one of the bigger problems is the state of New Jersey used to give us $500,000 to $600,000 grant per year, and we did that whole road in 13 sections. Now we're getting 240, 250, maybe 260,000. So they're trying to address the worst of the street at this point in time, because there's some sections there where it was just coming up, the pavement there.
I think they missed it.
All right, we'll check it out.
Yeah, really, you'll
Okay.
see. where they-
How about right in front of that beautiful farm stand? Was that done? All right, well, go to the farm because there's great long hots there. Might be a little bumpy on the road, but you. Great, good. All right, Anthony, what
Yeah,
else you got?
other than that, we have, we're in the process of working on the design for, Dingletown, Park. We took your advice from the previous meeting. We're gonna try to encompass everything that's covered under the grant, under, one design plan, then have, everything that we can do under the alternative to finish it under, alternative bid, so you guys can see if it's something that you would want to finish at that time.
Okay, great.
So we're in the process of that. Other than that, we did issue a couple COs for prior land use board approvals. Still waiting to hear back on Bighorn, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Anthony. Steve, good evening, welcome.
And I have nothing other than what was previously reported on the pit and Bighorn. I have no further update.
Okay, great, thank you. Right now, we'll go to the Township Administrator. Sue, good evening. Any updates from you?
Yeah, I have a list of them, actually. We have a number of events taking place in the town, first being this coming Saturday, the Pine Barrens Olympic Tri-Do Aqua and Sprint Triathlon. That'll be taking place between 8 AM and 11:30. The Valentine Winery Wine Fest 2024 will be held on September 21st and 22nd. Indian Mills Volunteer Fire Company will do a coin drop on September the 21st from 7 AM to 9 PM with a rain date of the 22nd. And there's a Tour of the Pines bike ride on October the 6th. As far as the election for 2024, mail-in ballot drop box will be open on September the 20th. Voter registration deadline is October 15th. Early voting begins on Saturday, October 26th through Sunday, November 3rd. And the hours are Monday through Saturday, 10 AM to 8 PM, and Sunday, 10 AM to 6 PM. Pinelands Memorial Park Cemetery is holding a Veterans Day ceremony on November the 9th at 10 AM. And Tower North has submitted their building permit application for the cell tower, so I'm not sure where that is in the process, but they're starting that process. And I heard from John Lyons, our OEM coordinator earlier this evening, who said that there's been reports of smoke and haze in our area and confirmed that everything is fine. It's remnants of the tea time fire. It's still smoldering out in Tabernacle, and with the wind change, it's covering, the wind's getting blowing the smoke over here, but they're watching it, but there's no danger at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Nice quick report. We're gonna open this, we're gonna close the meeting and open it up to,
I'd like to ask you something real quick.
yeah, sure.
Just Mayor DeCroce mentioned before the athletic fields at Stony Creek. Has anything changed or developed on the lighting for that?
No, we're still looking for a grant. I know that the IMAA is in support of that as well, if we can make that happen. But we haven't seen a grant to be able to do that with yet.
Yeah, I think John is here, and can you give us some update on what that was gonna cost?
I think the light fixtures themselves are probably in the ballpark of $60,000 just to buy the fixtures. The poles, I think the layout we had for 10 poles was somewhere around $35,000 just to set the pole. And then you got all the conduit in the ground, all the ground mount junction boxes, wire. Luckily, we do have a service in the shed already there we could utilize. But you're looking at, it's gonna be probably somewhere between the $100,000 and $200,000 point to get that accomplished.
Amazing.
And I don't know if there's gonna be an issue with, I know Mr. Lyons mentioned there might be, that area might be used for medevacing people, for helicopters, for emergencies and stuff like that. They had to look into if that was going to be an issue or not.
The poles might actually be a detriment to that.
That's his point.
Because at this point, they use our field and they use the Indian Mills Memorial, I know, as two sites that they land in.
Well,
I know that they were expecting like 40 or 50, I think 40-foot poles, so they weren't quite as tall as the poles at Dingletown. But they try to keep them lower, I think, to keep everything looking a little, incognito in that area.
It's better light control too, probably.
Yeah. Well, these aren't like your standard old school big bomb lights that light up the woods and everything. It's an actual sports lighter, so the lighting is actually focused down on the fields to eliminate the glare.
Well, John, I appreciate all the work you did into that. And if anybody wants to put Shamong Township field, lighting in their will, that would be good. All right.
John, thank you. Maybe look at the lights in terms of poles periphery towards the trees and in their same height range. I understand the EMS concerns, but there's still trees there they have to watch out for too. So if we can pull everything back and get a light tracing that can cover this, the field. I think that's a technical solution that can be covered.
Do they want to work down on that field eventually? Because I think if you're going to do that, I think the lighting definitely makes sense. If you look at the soccer fields at the end of the season, I mean, they're pretty much destroyed by the end of the year. I can't see them being able to be used much more than they're being used now with extra lighting. If we have the lights out there, the fields are going to get even more use. And are they going to be usable, with the grass that's out there? You can't plant grass and then continue to play on it. It's not going to work, right? So is turf something that could happen in the long run? I don't know. If we piggyback cameras out there for some of the vandalism that's going on and the off-road use on the fields, that's something that we can talk about too.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Anybody else on the dais have anything to say? Okay, we're gonna open the meeting back up to the public for public comment. One poll. One poll only. Yeah, she got her light.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're gonna close the meeting to public comment.
My grandson just told me the one on 206 isn't, it was working.
You had it done?
Last I heard, yeah. Is it a different one?
That one's working.
That's
All right, we can report that to Atlantic City Electric tomorrow. We can't do anything about it tonight, but we can report it again if it's truly not working.
No.
Bill, what would we do in the old days? We would go up and kick the pole and the light would come on, right?
No, one that you fixed.
That's working.
He's talking about the one that's by the new place, and that's not, I don't think that's our town.
I will take that up later.
Who's on first?
Ladies and gentlemen, anybody have anything further? If not, we're going to close the meeting to the public and thank you all for coming and for showing your interest and sharing your ideas. Lieutenant, thank you for spending the evening with us. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. We appreciate what your troopers are doing.
We need a motion for adjournment.
Yes, can we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.